5-minute break. Were you able to follow the course instructions? Nothing. All right, very good. I see no hand. You may continue. I think we have everything going.
Thank you. Publishing or, okay. I'm just gonna play, if you can look at it. Is this, in its entirety, video from your Ring camera?
Yes.
Okay, it's an accurate depiction of what you would have given the police access to, is that correct?
Yes.
Is your, is it motion activated?
Yes.
Okay, okay, so if there was no further movement, we wouldn't see the car move or anything else, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, the state would move into evidence 3A1.
No objection.
And it'll be admitted as stage 3A1 without objection.
Thank you. State has no further questions.
Cross?
They already did cross,
No,
so
it's
it's
cross.
redirect.
Can you redirect?
No
Yeah?
further questions.
So without. Next question on the list, may this witness be released?
Yes.
Yes.
Member Friedman, thanks for
Thank you.
State and call your next witness.
State Call Detective Aaron Campbell.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Chairman, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective, if you could please tell the jury your name.
Aaron Campbell.
And how are you employed, sir?
I'm a sergeant with Tampa Police Department.
How long have you been working as a sergeant with the Tampa Police Department?
Well, I've been with Tampa Police Department since 2010. Was a detective for quite a while, corporal for a while, and now sergeant.
All right. And I've been calling you detective. I apologize. You are a
No
sergeant.
issues.
All right. And that's a promotion, I guess, from detective. Is that
It
right?
is.
All right. Now, sir, back in 2022, what position did you hold at the Tampa Police Department?
Detective within the homicide unit at Tampa Police Department.
All right. And what are the general duties of a homicide detective?
To conduct death investigations and specifically homicide death investigations.
All right. Back in 2022, how long had you been working as a homicide detective?
Oh, I gotta think of what year I went over there. I think I went over there in 21 is I think when I went over there.
Okay. Prior to TPD, did you have other law enforcement experience?
Yeah, I started at Polk County Sheriff's Office in 1998. Left there in 2010 to come to Tampa PD and spent the majority of the time in homicide there.
All right. Now, were you involved in the investigation to the death of Nilexia Alexander?
I was.
When you all, as a homicide unit, are you detectives assigned specific jobs?
Yes, typically we are, yes.
Okay. And explain to the jury what some of those jobs are when a homicide investigation begins.
So typically when you go to a homicide scene, homicide unit, let's say us, for example, about a dozen detectives, and it goes through a rotation of who is lead, and it's just next up. Well, of course, you can't do everything by yourself, so we'll assign other detectives, and typically other roles, there's going to be a lead detective, a second to assist the lead, somebody's going to be assigned to do the crime scene. If the crime scene is extremely large, then we may put a second detective with that as well. And then oftentimes we'll bring out other resources as needed for video collection or whatever might be needed at that time.
So as a whole, though, you all generally work together as a unit, but you do have certain people who lead specific parts of the investigation. Would that be all right? We're accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Now, on this particular investigation, were you assigned any particular duties?
Yes, I was assigned to scene that day.
The scene?
The scene, yes, sir.
Explain to the jury what the duties are of a crime scene detective.
So I'm going to get on scene. Of course, I'm going to meet with people, be briefed on what is known at that time. I'm going to be shown the scene. And then at my direction, I'm going to work with our crime scene analyst, and we're going to go through that scene, mark evidence, collect evidence, photograph evidence.
All right. Did you go out to the scene in this particular case?
I did.
Do you recall at what time you arrived to the scene?
Yeah, it was 5:35, I believe it was, in the morning.
All right. And was it dark when you arrived?
It was.
All right. And this was in May of 2022, correct?
It was.
All right. If you can, kind of describe to the jury what you saw when you arrived, what you did when you arrived, kind of just go through the basics of that.
Yeah, so I arrived in the area of 109, 110 West Floribraska Avenue. It was an abandoned lot on the south side of the roadway. We had a female victim lying in that open lot area. So at that point, everything had already been secured by crime scene tape prior to my arrival, and it was going through and determining items of importance to just document and to ultimately collect.
All right. I'm going to show you what's already been introduced as State's Exhibit 36A. And take a look behind you. Do you recognize that location?
Yes, I do. That blue little marker up there, that would be the vacant lot I was just referring to.
All right. And the roadway there that's by that blue dot that says West Floribraska Avenue, is that basically the road that it was
Yep,
occurred on?
that is the road.
All right. And this occurred on, and so you went out there, and this is on Highland and Floribraska, right? Where it intersects
Yeah, the
kind of?
closest intersection or corner, there's Highlands and Floribraska.
And so State's Exhibit number A1, that's kind of the marker of where you all work, correct?
That is.
All right. Now, when you are setting up a crime scene, what are your duties? What kind of things are you going to do once you've made your initial view of the crime scene and looked at it? What do you start doing?
Well, we're going to do an initial walk through the crime scene, kind of get a lay of the land, so to say, and then we're going to start marking specific items of evidence with evidence markers, mostly for organization purposes.
All right, and you said you lay out markers, correct?
We do.
Do you also do kind of a crime scene diagram from time to time?
I do.
And when you do a crime scene diagram, do you have a specific location from which you make your measurements?
You try to pick a fixed marker that is not going to leave and be gone in a month or 2 months or maybe even a year. So for this particular one, I picked a telephone pole to measure everything from.
All right, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit A2. Is that in fact the telephone pole you use in order to make your measurements?
That is.
All right. Now, when you're out there, you work with, I believe you might have said this already, you work with other crime scene investigators? And
Yes.
Do you kind of direct them as to what you want collected, what you want photographed? Is that how it works?
That's correct.
All right. Prior to evidence markers being placed down, do you all photograph the scene as it looks before anything is marked as evidence?
We do. They do overalls.
Okay. So I'm going to show you A3. Is this one of those overalls that you did?
It is.
And what are you documenting here with this photograph?
The scene as it was found.
All right. So this is prior to any markers being placed down, prior to you all actually kind of going around and really inspecting it. This is just kind of what it looks like
That's
when
correct.
you arrive. Okay. And then A4, this is kind of the same thing, just from a different angle.
Yep.
All right. Now, after you have done the photographs of the overall, and obviously in this particular case, do you also photograph the objects and stuff prior to putting markers down as well, usually?
We do.
Sometimes? Okay. Now, once you start laying the markers down, do you then do photographs with the evidence markers also in place?
We do.
So I'm showing you what's marked and been introduced as State's Exhibit A5. Are these in fact some of an example of the markers being placed down that indicate pieces of evidence that you believe may or may not be relevant, but you mark them anyhow, is that right?
That's correct.
So, and let me go back to that and ask you that. So when you mark these things, what information do you have about the case?
Depending on the information gathered in the beginning, it can be very little to a lot. At this point, we knew we had a dead female laying there. It appears to be a homicide, but that's all the information that we had at the time.
All right. And so do you know, like, everything there, what it will be or may not be relevant down the road?
No idea.
Okay, but do you mark things just kind of as a precaution and take them into evidence?
That's correct.
Okay. And what's already been introduced as states A6, again, just another angle showing, again, more markers now in place around the victim's body, is that right?
Yes.
All right. Now, Detective, I'm going to approach real quick and show you what is marked as states A9 through A57, and after you ask if you can just take a quick look through those and see if you recognize those.
I have no objection to these being introduced.
All right, they'll be admitted without objection.
Okay, thank you, Judge.
A9 through A7.
Yes, and just kind of quickly, just make sure you do recognize all of them before I start asking you questions about them all.
Yeah, they all appear to be all the photos that we had taken out there that day, documenting the evidence. Yeah, these are all photos taken by crime scene that day at the scene.
All right, and when you say taken by crime scene, so you didn't actually physically take these pictures, did you?
No, I took no pictures.
Okay, but are you present when the pictures are being taken?
I am.
And do you often work in concert with the crime scene investigator to determine what it is that you want pictures taken of?
We do.
Okay. All right, so let me go now to State's Exhibit number A10 and ask you, what are we looking at in this picture?
A10, we're looking at, let me look at my sheet here because sometimes things show more than one thing on there. So this is A10 on the evidence list, sir?
Yes.
Yeah, so A10 is going to be a shell casing.
Because there's a shell casing in there?
Well, you said A10. I'm looking on my sheet. It says shell casing.
Oh, you know what? This is not, I'm sorry, not your A10. This is
Okay.
the court's or State's Exhibit A10, so
Okay.
it's a different
We
thing.
probably have a different number then. I know what my A10 is.
Well, how about I pass this, and I know where we can go to where you will understand what it is. Let's look at A11. These are markings for the court.
Yes, A11 is suspected blood droppings.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. So this is what you believed, and this is still on the road. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And for instance, when we look at States A12, that kind of gives you a more clear picture that it is, in fact,
Yeah.
on the road, correct?
Yes, it does.
All right, and so you all saw that evening or that morning when you were out there and laid that marker down to take a picture and document that.
We
is that
did.
right? All right. Then States A13, just kind of another angle of that. It
Yep.
shows the relative distance between markers 1, 2, and 3, correct?
It does.
All right. Then A14, what are we looking at here?
You're looking at two things there. You're looking at suspected blood on 2, and on number 3, we're looking at a shell casing.
Okay. So here, there's 2 specific items that you are marking so that it can be clear. Is that
That's
right?
correct.
All right. And so in A14, 15, this is a more close-up view of of marker 2, is that right?
Yeah, so blood spatter on a leaf.
Okay, in A16, would that be even a more close-up view of that?
Yep, same picture, yeah, so closer up view.
All right. You said 3 was a casing, correct?
Shell casing.
So if we look at State's Exhibit A15, I'll zoom in a little bit here so it's more clearly visible.
Yes,
Is that in fact the shell casing you all found out there that night?
it is.
All right. Now, when you find a piece of evidence like this, do you take that into evidence? Like, do you take it into custody, basically?
do.
All right. How do you all do that?
The crime scene will collect that piece of evidence, place it in an envelope. It'll go back to the office, get entered into evidence. It can also undergo testing in-house for NIBIN and other types of things, and eventually goes off to generally Florida Department of Law Enforcement.
Okay, Florida Department of Law Enforcement. So you'll send them out there maybe to make like comparisons, things like that?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit A17, and what are we looking at in this particular picture?
Well, you're looking at a couple things here. Most notably is going to be that tropical fantasy pineapple bottle here, and a cell phone charging cord or USB charging cord.
All right. And in A18,
More of a close-up of the LG cell phone charging cord.
all right. And again, all of this stuff was just how you found it when you arrived on the scene?
Exactly as it was, yes, sir.
All right. Now, this charging cord, did you mark and take that into evidence as well?
We did.
All right, and does State's Exhibit A19 show what marker number that was?
Yep,
That was?
number 6.
All right. And the bottle, did you mark and take that into evidence as well?
Yep, we did. We listed it as number 5.
All right. And A20, is that kind of an indication of how you all marked it?
It is.
Now, at a certain point, when the medical examiner arrives, do you all move the body to ascertain whether or not there may be evidence underneath the victim's body?
We do.
Now, you all wait until the medical examiner arrives to touch the body, is that correct?
Yeah, well, when the medical examiner is going to respond, and they were in this case, then we do wait.
Okay. And I'm showing you State's Exhibit A21. Was this the location where the body had been before it was moved?
It is.
And does that kind of document that there was nothing of evidentiary value that was located underneath her head, correct?
That's correct.
Now, when you were looking at the victim's body, did you all discover that there was some piece of evidence that may have been located on her body, actually?
Yeah, we did. I think you're referring to a shell casing that was kind of on her side and near a pocket.
Okay, so I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit A22. Do we see what you were referring to in this picture?
Yeah, we do. You can see it right here in the corner. It's a shiny object that's kind of in the corner of her pocket, and it's a shell casing.
And tell the jury, for those jurors who may not know what a shell casing is, what is a shell casing, basically?
So you have a bullet, which would go inside of a gun, and the shell casing contains a primer as well as gunpowder. Then fitted inside of that shell casing is a projectile, which is what's referred to as a bullet. So when the gun fires, the casing can do one of two things. If it's a revolver, it can remain in the gun. If it's a semi-automatic pistol, it would be ejected from the gun, and then the projectile would leave the barrel towards wherever it had been pointed at that time. But what we often find at crime scenes are the shell casings of the expended round once the bullet has been fired.
Okay, so this is not uncommon to find shell casings in an area where a gun had been fired?
No, not at all.
All right. And A23, is that just more of a close-up picture of that shell casing that you all were attempting?
It is.
All right. And then that is marked as well, correct? So that you all have it for, so you can know exactly on a diagram where it is?
That's correct.
And so what number was this one marked
I
as?
believe that was number 8.
So A24, would that be
Yep, that's it right there.
photograph of number 8 with the projectile? Then A25,
Just a close-up of the shell casing.
okay. A26, marker number 7, what are we looking at in marker number 7?
Number 7 is what appears to be tire impressions, possibly left by a bicycle.
All right. Now, at that point in time, when you marked that and took that, did you know how the victim had arrived on scene?
We had no idea.
So, in your mind, that could have become relevant if the victim had maybe ridden there on a bike, or and then if someone had come and found her on a bike.
Absolutely, it was there, it was in the area, and we documented it.
So that's kind of an example of how sometimes you'll document things that may not have any relevance down the road, but at least you make sure that you have it documented at the time.
That's correct.
Okay. When you all were out there at the scene, did you attempt to identify who the victim was at the time?
I believe they did try to do rapid ID at the scene. I don't remember what the results were of it.
All right. Do you also look for sometimes markings on the victim's body or whatever that could help lead to identification?
Sure, tattoos, marks, things like that.
All right. I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit A27. Why? What is the purpose of this picture?
Just to document the tattoo of Arthur on her arm.
And that was on her arm?
Yep.
All right. Now, you had, while you were out at the scene, you had just described that it was dark, is that right?
That's correct.
All right. So at that time, while it was dark, was that basically all the evidence that you had located?
It was.
Okay. Did you feel like at that point in time, there was nothing else to see there, and you all wrapped up the crime scene and the body was taken?
That's correct.
Now, where is the body taken at that point?
To the medical examiner's office.
Is that where they conduct an autopsy?
It is.
Do detectives sometimes attend those autopsies?
We do.
Did you attend this autopsy?
I did.
And so you left the crime scene, and did you go straight to the autopsy?
I did.
Okay. Were the victim's clothing taken at the autopsy?
Yes, they were.
And were they photographed?
They were.
And were you present when they were photographed?
I was.
All right. Showing you A53. What are we looking at here? Oops.
Yep, that's okay. The clothing items that she was wearing at the scene.
All right. And then A54.
Same thing, close up of the top.
Then A55.
Close up of the shirt.
All right. A56. Are you trying to identify or show something in this particular picture?
I think it's just a close up showing possible blood spatter and those types of things right there.
All right. Were any in showing you A57?
Yeah, you can see what appears to be a possible bullet hole entrance or some kind of deformation in the shirt.
Okay, so that's what you're trying to annotate
Yep.
in that picture, is that a potential bullet hole entrance in the shirt. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Now, after you were done conducting, or after you were done attending the autopsy, what did you do at that point?
I actually drove back out to the crime scene.
Okay. Now, before I get to that, I remember another question I was going to ask you. When you found the charger, did you all ever find a phone?
No, we never found a cell phone.
Okay, not on the victim's person or anywhere around the victim?
Not at the scene, not at the autopsy. We never found a cell phone.
All right. Now, you indicated you went back out to the crime scene. Is that normal?
At times it is. We're out there, it's dark. these shell casings and small things are incredibly hard to see, especially with these flashlights we're using today. They are bright, almost beyond measure, and it's this bluish hue, and sometimes with the aid of natural light, you can see things that you just weren't able to see before.
All right. So you went back out there, I guess, when it was light so that you could see a little bit better?
I did.
And did you go walk around the scene?
I did.
Did you have a crime scene investigator with you also?
Not initially. I did make discoveries and then called crime scene out.
Okay, so when you went back out, you did see some things that you had not seen before, is that
I
right?
did.
All right. Showing you A28. I know it's hard to see, like you were describing, how
Yeah,
it can be
it
hard to
is.
see. Did you notice anything there that you saw?
Yeah, it's a shell casing.
And if you could maybe stand up and kind of show.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Kind of indicates, so it's like kind of,
in this area right here.
so almost right in the center of that screen.
It is.
All right. Then A29,
Yeah. Right in this area right here's another shell casing.
okay. And did you, now, when you've discovered this other shell casing, did you contact crime scene to come back out?
I did.
And did you mark and document this evidence as well?
We did.
All right. Showing you A30. Was that the number you marked that particular shell casing
It
with?
is.
And what number is that?
Number 9.
Did you locate another shell casing while you were out there?
I did.
I'm showing you A32. Does that appear to be the other shell casing you noticed?
Yes, it is. It's right here in the leaf litter.
Again, right in the center pretty much of the screen, correct?
It is.
And was that shell casing marked as well?
Yeah, number 10.
So I'm showing you State's Exhibit A33. That shows the marker of number 10.
Yes, sir.
All right. In A34, what are we looking at there?
Just shows where the two shell casings were located nearly together.
Okay. So it kind of gives you a sort of a distance, and it was off the road, is correct?
It was.
All right. Did you find anything else in your search out there that when you came back in the day?
Yeah, I did. I located 2 projectiles.
Okay. Now, A35, I'm pretty certain that from this picture, we're not going to really see those projectiles.
I
but-
don't think so, no, sir.
Okay, but this is kind of what the lot looked like when you went out there that afternoon?
Yep, very much so.
And A36,
Yeah, it's still not easy to see, but that's a projectile right here, kind of into dirt, and it's kind of half covered with dirt itself.
okay. So that's, again, a projectile is the bullet that's actually fired.
That is
So that
correct.
bullet had been fired out of that firearm, or out of a firearm.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. In A37, is that just more a close-up of that bullet?
Yes, it is.
Were those projectiles, were they marked as well?
They were. It was marked number 10 and number 11.
Or number 10, wasn't 10 a casing?
Excuse me, 11 and 12.
Okay. And so A38 shows marker of 11?
Yes.
And did you find anything else?
One additional projectile.
All right. Showing you State's Exhibit A48.
Yeah, you can kind of see it right here underneath this little bit of grass.
All right. And A49. So just a more close-up view of that?
Yep, the same.
And again, is that marked for later identification
It is,
purposes?
it's marked with number 12.
All right, and so State's Exhibit A50, is that the projectile with the marker?
Yes, yes, sir, it is.
All right. Now, these items, they are, in fact, that you find out there, taken into, or diagrammed first. Let me get into the diagram first. You all diagram it, is that
Sure,
right?
yes, I diagrammed it.
Okay, and when you had mentioned earlier that you use the telephone pole, that gives you the distance, so there's a central spot where you can say where everything is from.
That's correct.
And I'm showing you what's marked as State's Exhibit number 2 for identification. Do you recognize that?
I do. It's the diagram of the scene along with the markers and the distances from that pole to each one of the items.
All right. Does that fairly and accurately depict the crime scene diagram you put together for this case?
It does.
All right, Judge, at this time move to have State's Exhibit number 2 admitted into evidence.
All right, it'll be admitted to States 2 without objection.
All right, so, just to be clear on this, where this says 100 block of West Floribraska and there's a gray kind of line like that, what is that supposed to indicate?
The just the roadway.
All right, so that's kind of the pavement or the, street type area?
It is.
All right. Now, if you could, so all those markers that we've seen in those previous pictures that are numbered, is that what we are seeing here on this diagram?
Yes, you are.
And so it gives sort of a general location. So, for instance, 1, which is suspected blood, you have it marked right there, kind of almost on the road.
I do.
Okay. Now, 3. So at the morning scene when you were out there, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
That's
7
correct.
are those tire tracks, correct?
That's correct.
All right. What is 4 in this particular diagram?
That would be the body.
Okay. And 3, what is 3?
3 is a shell casing.
A shell casing. 8?
8 is, I believe, also a shell casing. Let me get my legend out, please.
Sure.
8 is a shell casing.
And that in fact was a shell casing that was found on
That was kind of the
arm.
one that was kind of in the corner of her pocket.
All right. And then 5 would represent is that the bottle?
That is the tropical fantasy pineapple bottle.
And 6 would be that charger?
Yes, it is.
And then later on, when you came back out later, that is when you discovered 9 and 10 and 11 and 12. Is that right?
That is correct.
All right. So these items that we've diagrammed, that you have demonstrated through the diagrams and through the pictures, those items, some of those items were in fact taken into evidence, correct?
That's correct.
All right. I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit number 22 for identification. I believe there's gloves. Yeah, right there. Can you take a look at that?
Yeah. Bear with me, these are not even close to the right size. You might be using these as mittens. Oh, yeah, please, thank you, buddy.
That's a little better.
Much better.
All right, if you could just take a look in there and just look at it, but don't take it out yet, so just so you can see.
It's the tropical fantasy pineapple bottle.
All right, and does it appear to be in pretty much the same condition as when you took it into evidence?
Yeah.
All right, move to have State's Exhibit 22 admitted into evidence.
Objection. All right, States 22 will be moved
All
out.
right, can you take the bottle out now, just so that everybody can take a look at it?
Can?
Now, obviously, the liquid in it had been drained, correct?
That's correct.
Can you tell if it's been dusted for prints?
It certainly has some type of processing done to it for certain. There's definitely a black powder, it appears to be all over it, and it looks like some type of possible ridge indentations from hand palm or something else.
But you didn't dust it?
No, I did not.
Right. That's done by the crime scene investigator.
It is.
All right, thank you. I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 23 now.
Yeah, change right towards.
Yeah, for sure. Can you take a look inside there and see if you recognize what that is?
This is going to be the phone charger.
All right, does it, based on your view of it, does it appear to be in the same or substantially the
does.
same conditions when you took it into
Yeah,
evidence?
it does.
Judge moved to have State's Exhibit 23 admitted into evidence.
No objection.
All right, you can remove it.
State 23 will be used without objection.
All right, and then I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 32A.
Yes, sir.
Can you, just by the outside of the package, does it indicate what it is?
It does. It's going to be two 9mm shell casings.
And does it say where they were obtained from or what their location was or anything like that? Or it doesn't?
Yes, item number 4A and 4B here. But
Let me, hold on, let me start with 32B.
Yeah, let's see if we can do
Let's start with 32B.
32B?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to withdraw that for right now. 32B, do you recognize what that is?
Yeah, two 9mm shell casings, it's number 3 and number 8.
Okay. So does that correspond with the markings from your diagram of shell casing?
It does.
Number 2 and number 3? Or
It
I'm sorry, number
does.
3 and number 8?
It does.
All right, can you take them out and take a look at them?
Yeah, see, each one has a shell casing in it.
Okay. And they appear to be in the same or substantially same condition as when you...
They do.
They were taken into evidence?
They do.
Judge moved to have State's Exhibit 32B admitted into evidence.
No objection.
32B will be admitted for the state without objection.
Publishing, so...
Hmm?
Go ahead and publish them. So this is the one from number 8. Now, the markings on the projectile itself, you did not do those markings?
No, sir.
Okay, do you know who or how it was done, or could have
I
been?
do not.
Okay. Were these items sent to be tested?
Yeah, they were sent to Florida Department of Law Enforcement.
And the other shell casing? And these are both of the same caliber, is that correct?
That's correct.
This one says number 3. Now, going back to 32A, Are these in fact the other shell casings that were collected on that day?
Yes, they are the ones from, collected from that day.
Those are the ones you came out to later on when
Yeah.
the sun was out that you were able to find them.
That's correct. It's even noted on there, located east of the pole.
All right, and are they in a substantially the same condition as when you took them into evidence on that day?
They are.
All right, Judge moved out of State's Exhibit number 32, 32A admitted into evidence.
No objection.
32A will be admitted for the state without objection.
Judge, I'm sorry, may I publish?
Granted.
Okay. And again, these were 9mm casings, is that right?
That's correct.
Now, were these also sent out to FDLE for further testing?
They were.
Okay. And as a crime scene detective, are you also sometimes involved in what evidence gets sent out to FDLE for testing?
I am.
Okay. And finally, I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit number 33. You take a look at that.
Yeah, these should be the projectiles. Yes, sir.
And those
These are
are
the
the projectiles you
projectiles that were
recovered?
located, yes.
Okay. And do they appear to be in substantially the same condition as when you collected them on that day?
They do.
Judge moved out State's Exhibit 33 admitted into evidence.
No objection.
State's 33 will be admitted without objection.
And move to publish.
Granted.
Just a few more questions here, Detective.
Sure.
Looking for a picture that I saw here a minute ago, and then I can't seem to find it. There it is. Okay. Showing you what's marked as State's Exhibit A51.
Yes.
Do you recognize what that is?
Yep, it's a house right at the end of the street on Highlands.
Okay. And would State's A52 be kind of looking from that house down Floribraska?
That's correct.
All right. So you would be standing basically here, you would be standing kind of somewhere over here. Would that be accurate?
That's correct.
Where my finger's pointing here, which would be kind of towards the very side of the house?
That's correct.
And that's the view from that side of the house looking towards Floribraska and the road.
That's correct.
And all of these cars that are pictured in State's Exhibit A52, those would obviously all be there for the crime scene, correct?
They all look police cars.
Okay. They aren't normally there, in other words?
That's correct.
Okay. Let me look through my notes for a second, Detective, and I'll let you know. So other than the scene and the autopsy, did you do any other work in this investigation?
Sergeant Cholnick and I went out to 2 locations just looking for video. I rode with her while she was attempting to collect video. That was it.
Okay. And did you ever do any transporting of evidence to Florida Department of Law Enforcement?
I did on 2 occasions.
Okay. And how do you do that? Explain to the jury what that entails.
You create a lab letter, which is what evidence you're sending to FDLE. Then you take the evidence to FDLE, and there's a process by which you check it into FDLE. So there's a recordation of the whole thing in a chain of custody.
In a chain of custody. So you take it yourself personally and drop
Yeah,
it off where?
Took it myself personally, checked it out of evidence myself personally, drove it to FDLE personally, and then submitted it to FDLE.
And that's to make sure it doesn't get tampered with, nothing gets messed up. It just goes directly from how you all found it to FDLE.
That's correct.
And then at FDLE, it's kept securely over there?
That's correct.
All right. If I may have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
All right, Judge, I'll pass the witness.
Ross?
Hi, good afternoon, Sergeant.
Good afternoon, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Good. All right. So your job in this case was essentially to preserve and to document the scene. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Okay. When you get on scene, I think you said it was a little bit after 5:30 a.m.
It was.
Clearly, other people had been at the scene before you got there.
That's correct.
But the scene was taped off so that only emergency personnel could be on the inside.
That's correct.
Okay. You talked a little bit about the process in working with a crime scene investigator. The 2 of you, or sometimes even 3 or 4, will work hand in hand together.
Yes.
Okay. So the crime scene investigators, they're the ones ordinarily that are taking photographs and physically collecting items, correct?
That's correct.
But in all cases, you are on the scene, you're walking the scene with them, you're talking about which potential items of evidence might be relevant.
Yes, along with them also pointing things out to me, perhaps.
Of course, because the crime scene investigators, they are trained, correct?
Yes, they are.
And so they are trained into knowing different processes like fingerprinting and photography and all of those things.
Yes.
I think you mentioned with Mr. Terry, when you're at a scene, you don't always know what's going to be relevant.
That is correct.
Is it sort of the motto that if it looks like potentially it could be relevant, you're going to collect it just in case you need it down the road?
Yes, it is.
Now, there are some items that are going to stand out to you as definitely being relevant, like, for example, the shell casings.
Sure.
Also, in this particular case, we talked about the tropical fantasy bottle and the phone charger. Those were in very close proximity to the decedent, correct?
That's correct.
So that's something that's potentially relevant to you.
Yes.
You talked a little bit about the process of collecting the items. Now, at all times when items are collected, you and or the crime scene investigators are wearing protective gear,
That's correct, yes.
such as gloves on your hands.
Yes.
And you are doing that, and they are doing that, so that their own DNA or fingerprints do not transfer onto the items.
That is correct.
Okay. And that's sort of like crime scene 101. Everyone knows that that's what you need to do.
Very basic rules, yes.
Right, okay. All right. Are you also involved in decisions with regard to which items to fingerprint for potential fingerprints and which items to swab for potential DNA?
Yes, but then they also have latitude as well. When they get back to the office, they're doing further examinations of the items and sometimes determining the best path to take. But yes,
Okay.
we all work together on that.
Okay. If there's something that you specifically want done, is that something you would communicate to the crime scene investigator?
Yes.
But in addition to that, I think what you're saying is that the crime scene investigator themselves, they can make that determination, oh, I should probably swab or take fingerprints.
That's correct.
Okay. Did you make any special requests for any items to be fingerprinted that were collected?
No, not at that time, I did not.
Okay. Did you make any special requests for items to be swabbed for DNA that were collected?
No,
So the shell casings that were collected from the ground, that there was no request by you to swab those for potential DNA?
that's correct.
Okay. And no request for potential fingerprinting evidence to be done?
That's correct.
You talked about also attending the autopsy, and that's something that's fairly normal for a homicide detective.
That's correct.
Almost always in one of these cases where a death is being investigated, there's going to be a crime scene investigator and a detective there.
Oftentimes.
Okay. And are you there just sort of as an observer to watch and see what's going on?
Watch, observe, and to learn.
Okay. And were those your roles in this case as well?
Yes, I'm not performing any special function there.
Right. While you were there, though, at the autopsy, I'll talk specifically about this case, are there swabs that are taken from the decedent herself?
There are.
And those swabs are taken by either the medical examiner or the crime scene investigator?
Generally by the medical examiner, and the medical examiner people that are there, that are their techs, are generally doing all of that. The crime scene, if we bring our crime scene, they are generally only photographing. They may take a piece of evidence back with them, but that's generally only after it's been obtained by the personnel from there.
Do you recall specifically there being swabs taken from Miss Alexander's body in this case?
There were.
Okay. Do you ultimately collect those and forward those on to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement?
In a roundabout way, yes.
Okay.
So they would collect them, they would have them as evidence there, then they would transfer those to us at Tampa PD. They would wind up in our evidence, and then, as in this case, I did take those and submit them to the FDLE lab for further analysis.
And when you say they take them, they collect them, they transfer them, you're talking about the medical
I am
examiner?
talking to, yes, when I say they, I'm talking about them.
Okay, all right. And in addition to swabs, I asked you about, do they also take fingernail clippings, they again being the medical examiner's office?
Yes, fingernail clippings, scrapings, and other things, yes.
And all of that swabbing and all of those clippings are collected to determine if there's any foreign DNA?
Yes,
Okay, and when I say foreign, of course, to Miss Alexander, the decedent.
that's correct.
Okay. And with regard to a conversation as to which items should be sent to FDLE for further testing, are you part of that conversation?
Generally, I am.
Okay, and were you part of that in this particular case?
In the initial parts of this, yes. The beginning of the investigation, those first 2-3 weeks in, I was.
Okay, and also part of that conversation, I'm assuming, is going to be the lead detective.
That's correct.
And the lead detective in this case is Detective Jacob Wheeling?
That's correct.
Okay. Can I have a moment, please, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
Nothing further. Thank you very much, sir.
Will you read? What is excuse?
Yes.
I have no objection.
Thank you.
Have a good day. You're welcome.
That's it. Call your next witness. Call your next witness.
Officer David Ziegler.